Lake Victoria is Africa's largest freshwater lake. The lake supports over 40 million people in 3 countries, that is Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda, and its source is the River Nile. The lake and its resources fuel the economies of Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda, and according to the Nile Basin Initiative, the lake and its catchment provide 90% of the region's water supply for major urban centers like Kampala, Kigali, Mwanza, and Kisumu. The region's inhabitants rely on the lake for all aspects of their lives, including fishing, agriculture, and industrial applications. However, Adzin notes that the increasing population has negatively impacted water quality through agriculture and industrial runoff and sewage. Furthermore, the invasive water hyacinth is blocking fishing access and providing breeding grounds for diseases carrying mosquitoes and nails. Lake Victoria Water and Sanitation Initiative in 2009 noted that the access to improved water in the towns of Migori, Kisii, Homa Bay, Siaya, and Bondo is between 60 and 70%. The figures in Uganda are rather erratic. For example, in Bugembe, Gamba, Musaka, access to improved water is over 90% as opposed to Kyotera with only 18%. In Tanzania, access to improved water in the towns of Bukoba, Muleba, Geita, Sengerema, Bunda, Mutukula, and Musoma ranges between 13% in Mulemba and more than 50% in the rest of the towns. As indicated in the Nile Basin Initiative technical reports on water resource management, in Nile Basin countries such as Kenya, water shortages are already a challenge and will become severe in the near future. As such countries have been advised to put measures in place to help tackle this, such measures include water reusing and adopting circular economy in the Nile Basin regions. In recent years, the circular economy has become a priority income-generating sector, as seen from the importance being attached to the blue economy by countries around water bodies, including in the Nile Basin. Countries in the region, including Kenya, have realized that embracing a more sustainable approach to their development will generate benefits in terms of environmental security, human well-being, and increased competitiveness, thus shaping opportunities and options far into the future. Experts advised that the region's path to the realization of the SDG 12 lies on responsible consumption and production, and that promotes the principles of reduce, reuse, and recycle and Paris Climate Change Agreement. This has entailed giving incentives to the reusing products rather than discarding them and then extracting new resources. Circular economy is mainly achieved through water recycling and reuse. This is through wastewater treatment and management, irrigation, biogas production, hydropower production, and water purification and consumption. NBI reports that water reuse could play an important end, particularly when projecting 20 to 30 years in the future, as water scarcity increases due to increase of population and frequency of drought. For the fisher folks around Lake Victoria, most families draw their water in containers from the lake daily. At the same watering points, others wash their clothes, dry their fish, and children bathe and play around the calm waters as the animals continue drinking from the same point. According to Francis Okumu, a resident of the lake region in Kenya, while fishing has been the major source of income-generating activity, this is threatened because of the dwindling fish stocks, enhanced patrol by security personnel, poor fishing methods, and pollution. Vovin Ogubi, a resident, is worried that even people around the lake are abandoning fishing and are equally doing irrigated farming of crops, but using poor irrigation methods, including excessive chemicals that drains into the lake, further polluting the lake and making the water unsafe for drinking. We visited Kisumu Water and Sanitation Company Limited, Kiwasco, Dunga Water Treatment Plant in Kisumu City to understand how water treatment is done at this site. According to Kiwasco, the plant has provided a solution of water demand in the area and as such benefited the locals. Currently, Kiwasco produces 40% from Dunga Treatment Plant through pumping and 60% from Kajulu Treatment Plant. According to QASCO technician engineer Moses Jura, the company has not been able to fully meet their expectations due to few constraints. Climate change, water hyacinth, and rise of water levels in the lake have been a major hindrance. As such, led to the company's inability to effectively provide water to the Kisumu residents.
Number one challenge we face is the invasion of water hyacinth, which of course prevents our pumps from operating the way they are supposed to operate. Recently we had a very interesting phenomenon where the lake levels rose to abnormal levels, which almost submerged our pumping system that is at the lake. From Lake Victoria, the chemical nature of that raw water has changed over time. Recently, just a month ago, the color of raw water from the lake has become a little darkish. If you observe it, it is dark blue. Yeah, that gives us a lot of problems, and the scientists are saying this is as a result of the problems which have been caused by water hyacinth. Unfortunately for us, our power costs are relatively high. So we are looking into areas of having alternative power, which are affordable for us to be able to use, and of course, reduce the costs of inputs in water production.
Along with drinking water, the lake also provides water for irrigation schemes around the region, where rice farming has mainly thrived, amidst other crops such as soybeans, maize, tomatoes, and vegetables. The irrigation scheme pump water from the lake, and excess water is pumped back into the lake. The 2020 NBI technical report on mapping land sustainable for irrigation in the Nile Basin notes that the total area equipped for irrigation in the Nile Basin parts of Kenya, Lake Victoria North and Lake Victoria South catchments, is about 47,500 hectares, while the cropped area is averagely 20,000 hectares. The total suitable land for irrigation in the Nile Basin in Kenya, however, is almost 2 million hectares. Public and private irrigation schemes in the Kenya Nile Basin include West Kano, Ahero, and Bunyala irrigation schemes. According to the Nile Basin Water Resource Atlas 2016-2022, the total annual average irrigation and demand is established at about 367 million cubic meters. The actual water use is estimated to be 307 million cubic meters. Though with a high potential, Kenya Electricity Generating Company reports that hydropower only accounts to 45% of Kenya's installed power capacity. There are only 2 hydropower plants in the Lake Victoria Basin, the Sondu Miru and Songoro stations that provide electricity to the area residents. According to the NBI, the hydropower potential in the Nile Basin exceeds 20 gigawatts, with countries in the basin depending on hydropower to varying degrees, with Burundi, DRC Congo, Ethiopia, and Uganda reliant on it for 80% and more in their power. The Nile Basin remains the only region in the African continent without a functional region power grid. The volumes of power traded in the Nile countries, with the exception of Egypt, is inadequate, unreliable, and expensive. Electricity consumption in the region is among the lowest in the world. Urban areas are significantly better served than rural areas, where the bulk of the population remains dependent on biomass energy sources, with associated negative impacts on the environment. As strides are being made to manage Lake Victoria resources to expand benefits to the region and to the locals, there have been, however, a few challenges. The United Nations notes that the region is facing increased challenges, including pollution from humans and industrial waste discharge into watersheds. According to the Lake Victoria South Water Works Agency, the region has seen increasing perennial water shortages attributed to climate change, invasion of water hyacinth, and pollution. According to a research published by CSIRO on exploring changes in water pattern, demand, and stress along the Nile Basin through the lens of Kenya and Egypt, Spatial distribution of water stress was demonstrated, whereby downstream countries such as Egypt remain critically vulnerable, although upper riparian countries such as Kenya are gradually also facing emerging water stress challenges. The water stress and its spatial distribution are being driven by the supply-demand imbalances related to population growth and economic development, escalating upstream water use, deteriorating water quality, inefficient and ineffective water use, and climate change. Countries globally being signatories to the SDG 12 are embracing interventions to ensure sustainable use of resources, including water, to improve the living standards of their people, while at the same time ensuring future generations will not be starved of these resources. There is realization that there are new opportunities for uses of marine resources, and countries are aware that interventions must be sought to minimize the risks that come with the investment in such resources. Thus, focus on use interventions like water reuse.